Welcome to Ask a Therapist, a show where qualified therapists stop by to answer all your questions. Hey you, welcome to the very first episode of Ask a Therapist of 2025. And if you're new to the show, it's where you can send in your questions and we get qualified therapists to answer your questions. So how do you get your questions to us? In the show notes, there is a question form. Drop your questions there, which you can do anonymously as well, and then stay listening to hear your questions answered. But this is a very special episode because we have one of the therapists who's going to be part of our upcoming group therapy sessions dropping by to answer some of your very interesting and relatable questions. Honestly, some of these questions, I was like, have we lived the same lives? Especially one. There's one question that I was like, this is exactly something I battle with, But before we get to that, group therapy is officially back. In case you are not aware, we have a 3-part group therapy session coming up where we have partnered with Shamiri Health to ensure that we start looking at how can you and I arrive a lot healthier in intimate relationships. And in case you don't know about Shamiri Health, they are a wonderful organization here in Kenya who are making interventions like group therapy, individual therapy, couples therapy, family therapy more accessible to you and I. So what we're having is a 3-part group therapy session geared on helping you identify your attachment styles. Are you anxious? And even in anxious, there's different types inside there. Are you avoidant? Why? This group therapy is also going to help us move to a more secure attachment style. It's also going to help us navigate conflict in intimate relationships, identify red flags. And the thing that I also struggle with, we're going to be talking about, which is building healthy boundaries in intimate relationships and just so much more. All 3 sessions in total are going to cost you 3,000 bob, which is super, super accessible when you look at the value you're going to get, the community you're going to be building as well. The first session is on the 1st of March, second is on the 5th of April, third is on the 3rd of May. And by the end, you will have so much clarity as to why you've been arriving the way you do in relationships. And you will also be so much closer, if not already there, to a secure attachment style, right? The work will have begun 3 sessions. So when you book your slot, you are committing to all 3. I'm going to need us to commit. We commit to going to the gym. We commit to going for family meetings. We commit to going for wedding committee meetings. We commit to meeting up with our girlfriends every month. Why can't we commit to doing something that's going to better us? I am where I am today in terms of self-awareness, healing, and living a very free life because of committing to therapy every week for an entire year about 3 years ago. And that work at the time did not feel good. It did not feel good. It was heart-wrenching, a lot of pain, a lot of tears. Towards the end was just a lot of clarity. But my goodness, that work saved my life. 100% saved my life. Now, what I like about group therapy is that you're building a community while you're going through it. You immediately know you're not the only one going through these things. And the knowledge that therapy gifts us, incredible. So in the show notes, there is a link where you can grab your tickets and book your slots. They're very limited because it's group therapy and they are selling out. A big shout out to everybody who has already committed. Urge you to commit nice and early. But more than anything, I am very excited to walk this journey with you. I know a member of my team had called me for a completely different project and they were like, oh yeah, so they want you to be at this event at this time on the 1st of March. And I said, I can't. I have a very important thing to be doing on the 1st of March. And that's beginning this healing journey with you. I hope I see you there. In this episode, we have one of the Shamiri Health therapists. His name is Simon with a Y, coming through to answer some of your questions, and he'll share more on what you can expect when you come for group therapy. And now, let's get right into answering all your questions. So here at Legally Clueless, we have Ask a Therapist, where we have different therapists come in and answer your questions. And I'm very excited about this episode because we have someone who is a friend because of the organization he works with, who have become our partners and friends in our group therapy, and that's Shamiri Health. So we have Simon Murage with us today. How are you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm really good. I'm excited. We have great questions that were sent in, and I can't wait to hear the advice and the gems of wisdom you're going to be sharing. But first and foremost, just a bit about yourself. Obviously, we know you are with Shamiri Health,
Yeah.
but what was the inspiration behind becoming a therapist?
Well, could be a long story. You can do this all day. But in all honesty, for me, I'm a better listener than I am a speaker. So I don't have challenges getting to connect with people because I listen better. Also, I think a bit of shared experience. For me, when I was a child, I could see kids who are enabled a little bit different, which aroused a bit of curiosity in me. Then later on, a family friend got trouble with their mental wellness. Then it escalated my curiosity further. And that's how I ended up doing a bit of psychology. Yeah.
Simon, you sound so calm and grounded. I'm just like, He could deliver the worst news. And I'll just be like, that's great, Simon.
The best news as well.
Okay. And so we're so glad to have you on here. Let's jump into the first question. And it basically says, I leave my man and go back every time, even though he treats me like SHIT. Why do I do this? It can't be from daddy issues because I have a good relationship with my dad.
Okay.
So it seems there's no father wound here.
I think a lot could be happening, honestly. But the fact that I'm able to recognize that there is a pattern going on there in terms of their relationships or the people they attract, I think it's where to start. Just come in and we have a discussion around what are these specific patterns that you feel drawn towards. Is it a tendency? Is it the love bombing? What exactly is drawing you towards this particular person? And the element of you going back as well is something you need to explore a little bit in depth to understand. All right, you're going back. What are you looking to achieve or attain? Is it more around you doing most of the work, or is it about thinking around the persons or the people you're attracting? And through that, at least you'll be able to get a bit of grounding on how do I move forward in terms of either this particular relationship or relationships that you have present.
I like that. A lot of times when we talk about, especially for women who are attracted to men, having unhealthy relationships, everybody always rounds it off to daddy issues. So what are some of the other things that could influence your habits in relationships?
I think one of the key things people ignore is familiarity. So this feels so familiar. The fear of the unknown. I'm not sure what kind of other partner I may get. So you feel so familiar with this, even though it might be quote unquote toxic. And you settle with that because you feel I can be able to regulate or control this relationship, or else this is predictable. I know the signs of this particular person, I know how they move, so it feels a bit familiar for you and you're scared to approach the unknown. So I think that is one of the key things that people ignore when it comes to a sense of familiarity in terms of their relationships.
That is so powerful, because even if you are used to operating in chaos, you will subconsciously seek that because it's familiar and you feel safe in that because you know how to navigate it. And if something good comes, that's when you're like, oh, this is boring.
There's something that feels coming off about this.
Why is this so calm?
I'm not accustomed to this.
I love that. We also got this question because you brought up the word toxic. How do I know when a relationship of any type is toxic? I think we throw around the word toxic, especially in the social media space. But what like, how do we know this is toxic for sure?
I think anything that affects your normal functioning, to be honest, has an attribute, a great attribute of toxicity, so to say. But however, for different people, could show up differently. But I normally say the fact that you're having a conversation about toxicity in your relationship, there could be something going on there, you know. And one of the key things is the boundaries. So we go back to the conversation of boundaries. If you feel your boundaries are being crossed, then there is an issue there, you know, that needs to be addressed. If there is an issue of respect as well, that is also an element of toxicity. If you're not able to respect someone's decision, or your partner can't respect your decision, whatever that looks like, you know. And also being in a space where you find you're being isolated, you know, at times if you've been isolated from the things you enjoy doing, hobbies, interests, could be friends and communities that you have around you, if that is being separated from you by your partner, then I think those are really gray areas to check in on before things get out of hand.
I love that. With relationships, they demand vulnerability.
Yeah.
And that is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so we got this question about what practical steps can you take to overcome a fear of being vulnerable and rejected?
I think no one is ever comfortable with rejection. No one is easily with vulnerability. It's a process. For some, because of maybe the environment they've been accustomed to, it's easy for them to be more vulnerable. For others, it will take a bit of time. So they need to extend themselves a bit of grace, you know. So part of it is realizing, okay, I'm not the kind who shares easily, who can be easily vulnerable to friends and family. But I normally say start off with close community. Before you go off to strangers and what have you, start off with close family, friends, you know. They already have an idea of who you are. They know your flaws, you know. Start articulating that with them, you know. Let them see you by hearing you, you know. Then slowly in your relationship, you know, have this conversation, open communication with your partner, for example. Tell them I have a challenge being vulnerable, you know, so I'm okay with you prompting me at times, and be comfortable with being prompted, because now someone is ushering that to you. And when your partner as well is being vulnerable to you, they're also doing a bit of social modeling. You're seeing how vulnerability looks and feels like. So a little bit of open communication, honesty rather, and transparency, I think really does the work for one to be able to be very comfortable with vulnerability and embrace rejection. I normally say at times rejection comes, embrace it, you know, and be okay with it. The same way you do like interviews and you do like a senior role and you know kidogo it's 50-50. The same thing, you know, because it's an up until you try it, you know, you wouldn't know what the outcome would be. So go for it and be comfortable with a bit of rejection at times.
And sometimes rejection doesn't necessarily mean there's a problem with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's somebody communicating that maybe I don't want to be in a relationship right now. You know what I mean? So that's not that you, Simon, are a problem, right?
Yeah.
I think sometimes we take rejection to hurt and so personal. But you're hearing me talk like this, but I also me identify as those two things, vulnerability and rejection. Very tricky.
For sure.
We have another question here that says, is it okay for one's partner to hold on to a mistake the other partner did for over a month? How do we overcome something like this? The funny thing is, like, when I saw this question, I thought, this has come from someone I've been in a relationship with, and like a month for me is such a short time. You know, like I can remember September 2021.
You have did
when you said
XYZ.
So is it okay for one's partner to hold onto a mistake for this long?
I think one of the things we need to understand is we all heal differently. You cannot dictate how your partner should heal, to be honest. If it's a conversation on forgiveness, for example, give them time. You know, you don't need to tell them, it's been 3 days, Bana. What's happening? You know, hey, Kwani, you're not letting this go.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to realize, okay, everyone has their own healing journey. There are people who let go easily. Also, you need to understand, maybe you touch something that is very key in their life. You know, if it's conversations around betrayal. That is very key for someone, and expecting them to heal them abruptly cannot be a realistic.
Tricky.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky. So one of the things maybe as a person on the other side is to allow yourself to see the actions of this person. Are they remorseful? Are they being intentional towards checking in on you, as you go through your healing journey? And also allowing yourself a bit of space to process, Then at times I say, go for therapy if you're having issues, just letting go, go see your therapist and have that conversation. I'm having a challenge letting go of XYZ. They did this to me 3 months ago, and try and unearth a bit of that conversation and see how that goes as well, because professional intervention is good in case you feel you're holding on for too long.
I think that's so important, and I'm so happy Simon is going to be one of the therapists leading our group therapy sessions that are coming up, and later in this episode you will get more information, because for me, I found that the reason I was holding on is that it was easier for me to feel anger than pain.
Yeah.
So I would stay in the anger place because I don't want to.
Yeah.
I want to cross over and feel the pain and process. So I'd rather, let me just be angry.
Yeah. And for others, could be also a manipulation technique, where, because the other partner is showing up a lot more and you enjoy the attention, the vibe is present, always checking in, love bombing you and what have you. So you feel, let me hold on to this kid. Now go. This guy is acting right, eh?
Okay, so we got another question here that says, oh, this one is good because relationships and finances, difficult. Is it okay to tell a man straight away that you cannot date a broke man? Like, say this and I just wanted to give whoever that man is a hug. Oh my God. At the same time, it's like, well, anyway, you tell me, is it okay? Is it okay, Simon?
Well, it's a gray area, to be honest, because at times I say it's very good to be honest with what you want. You must put yourself first. You don't, no one will. So what you want for yourself, if a stable man is what you're looking for, maybe that's a better term to put it.
Broke is so harsh.
That's okay to communicate so that from the onset, this is a conversation you guys have had, so that even as you align your finances together as a couple in the future, you're not having discrepancies, when one partner will have this preference because there's an financial implication to it. It's okay to realize, okay, this other person, if it's a talking stage or something, it's okay to realize, okay, this person is not financially stable, and it's okay to be in a space where you communicate this and be like, for me, where I am at right now, I'm looking for a financially stable person. I think it's how you communicate that matters most, because again, it's okay to be very authentic in your communication, but of course, if you come off very harsh and rudely, you do not know how that would turn out, but it's okay to have finances as a priority because that is important.
I think it's important. My only caveat is if you base a relationship on something that is dynamic and it can change, not because somebody's working hard, there's so many factors. Economy can change, job markets can change. What happens if you get with someone who, at the time you get with him, is financially stable? 5 months down the line, they get an accident, so they can't go to their work anymore. They can't do whatever work it is they were doing. Do you leave? I mean, this finances thing, I'm like, hey, guys.
Because you think of even COVID, how it went, one moment you're all doing well as a family, you're financially well off, and the next minute things are tricky.
And it's because of things that are out of your
Beyond
control.
Beyond your control.
So to whoever sent in this question, I would say just, it's good you know what you want, but just sit with that for a bit,
For sure.
We got another question here that has a term that is thrown around social media like crazy. I've probably thrown it around as well. Maybe a guy has irritated me and I'm like, he's such a narcissist. How do I avoid dating a narcissist?
Ooh, okay. All right. I think that's a deep one. Narcissistic tendencies are there, but there's a criteria for it. Even in terms of our practice, by the time you say someone is narcissistic, there is a bit of criteria we try to use to ensure that this is like an official personality diagnosis, so to say. However, we are within different contexts, so we need to be cognizant of that. Like at times, I look at our African setups, our African homes, and the way fathers model at times could come off with elements and traits of being narcissistic. But in actual sense, they're not. It's an element of social learning, that has been there over time.
But not personality.
But now there's the personality element of it that comes in place. So to the question really is, how do you avoid people? I think it's by being very intentional on the folks that you're dating, looking at some of the traits they exhibit in terms of personality. If you feel they're crossing some boundaries, you're unable to appear yourself better because maybe they're coming off so strongly, because narcissism has a higher sense of grandiose. Someone is coming off too strongly and what have you. I think now you start from a distance, just label and check, see, okay, how does that go? If you feel this person has so high elements of superiority complex, they're unable to accommodate your boundaries because, again, they push the boundaries a lot as it is. And you see there is a drastic change in their behavior. If they used to love bomb you, they used to show up better for you. And there's elements of manipulation, because manipulation tends to come off a lot. Keep checking that, Then from there you can come with a more detailed, conclusive assumption on what that relationship looks like for you.
Is this something we're going to unpack in our group therapy sessions?
For sure. I think this will be really amazing because we'll be having elements of shared experiences. We'll be talking about what we've seen or experienced both in the present or possibly in the past, and trying to label it and putting it in the right spaces and places. And we'll be learning a lot about narcissism as it is.
And validating our feelings. I feel like sometimes with narcissists is that you think you're mad. Like you think this is not reality. You know what I mean? I must be seeing things.
Yeah.
And so group therapy would be a great place to get the tools, but to identify and then have your feelings validated. Like, you felt bad about that.
And you'll know you're not all alone.
You're not alone, yeah. So we have two last questions. One is, why do I attract the same type of men with the same type of traits? Especially since I don't like these traits. I like that you know the traits and you know that you don't like them. Yeah.
I don't know if this will come off very harshly. I normally say we need to do lots of self-reflection, because they articulate and say it's them attracting as it is. So we need to check in and see what's going on. Is there something that you are exhibiting that probably is giving people that element of attraction? You could be coming off a bit soft-spoken in some manner, and maybe the people you're attracting are people who like soft-spoken people, and for them, it reflects an element of submission in one or another. And along the way, those people know, all right, this is the ideal person to date.
I can
manipulate. Exactly. So lots of self-reflection is important. And also getting to realize by the end of the day, you must do what is healthy for you, not is what is healthy for other partners. Because at times, we tend to be very accommodative, be like, all right, he seems sweet. Again, going back to the conversation we had earlier, familiarity. Okay, this seems, I think this, I know of this. I think I can be able to regulate and control this. So getting to realize, all right, I need to be very intentional and have a checklist on the kind of things I want. You already know what you don't want. So what do you want? So if someone doesn't check that box, they'll be like,
actually, maybe you know what you don't want, but you don't know what you want. So you just stay with what you don't like. That's something, Simon. The last question, how can one fully trust a partner? And I was like, can you?
I want that to you.
Like people talk about, Nairobi, stay woke.
Yeah, for sure. Trust is a process, to be honest. It's not something you achieve within a fortnight. And this requires, again, lots of open communication, lots of vulnerability. There's a higher sense of intentionality. Because, again, we've seen people who you've trusted even for a long period of time, and somewhere along the way, they betray that trust. And unfortunately, that's something to us, So getting to look at your history with trust is important. Are you hesitant because you have a history going on there? Again, therapy is important. And see how that goes. Is there a history that is limiting you from allowing yourself to trust people better? Again, also, and going back to the conversation of allow yourself to trust in chunks, just a bit. Don't go all in, just go slowly, see how they handle that. See if they can be able to maintain confidentiality. Are they able to access your vulnerability in a very safe manner, non-judgmental? So looking at such traits will allow you to see, do I continue being more vulnerable and trust this person even more?
And slowly is nice. Ukichoma, it's like small.
Okay, yeah.
It's not an inferno.
Yeah.
So Simon, to someone who is thinking of signing up for group therapy sessions, that's going to be looking fully at relationships and how we arrive in them, boundaries, red flags, all the things we're talking about, spotting narcissists, what trauma are we carrying into relationships, and they're kind of like scared to even open that door. What would you tell them? What can they expect from the group therapy sessions that we're going to be doing with you, leading some of them?
Okay. I think one thing you're totally guaranteed is element of professionalism. You'll get not just me, even my fellow colleagues, you'll get people who are quite trained and vast and experienced, accredited even by government. We are attached to associations and we know exactly what we are doing in terms of therapy. But of course, I say do not fear. Be okay. Just come as you are. Don't look for a script. Don't feel hesitant. What will people think? Again, just come. We'll help you be more vulnerable. You listen to our stories as well. We'll have elements possibly where we'll be able to have self-disclosure.
Oh, I love when my therapist does that.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you too?
Nairobi.
Oh, I love self.
sure.
When she starts the sentence, it's just a bit of I'm like, wazi, trende.
You feel human, and I think that will be lots of the conversations you'll be having. And also remember, again, confidentiality is key. So part of group sessions is what we refer to as shared confidentiality. So in our groups, we'll be having shared confidentiality. So whatever we discuss thereafter is not meant to be discussed beyond that, because people will be sharing very intimate and personal struggles and challenges. So respecting that. So we tell people, come on and have this experience, enjoy it. If it's your first time, if it's your second or that, come and have this whole experience for yourself.
And so obviously, in the description of the show notes, there is more information on our group therapy sessions. Sign up. It's going to be 3 parts, and we're looking at making sure we arrive in relationships a lot healthier than we are or have been doing. And thank you so much, Simon, for coming on our podcast.
Yeah. Pleasure. Thank you so much.
That's all for this episode. If you have a question to ask a therapist, please drop it in our question form. A link to it is in the show notes. Catch you next week for the next episode of Ask a Therapist.